Hello and welcome to the Maple Grove City Report. I'm Dave Kaiser from Northwest Community Television. It's time once again for an update of what's new in Maple Grove as we're in mid-February and a look back at the most recent council meeting. All next for you on the Maple Grove City Report. And thanks again for joining us on the Maple Grove City Report, joined by Ken Asheville this time, not Al Madsen today. He is busy in St. Paul. Ken, thanks for joining us.
It's always a pleasure, Dave.
Ken's got some great info for us later in the program about engineering and public works in the city. We'll get to that in just a second, and we'll also get to the council meeting, which was rather short in a second. But first, a look of what's new around town. Give us a little update of some of the news in February in Maple Grove.
Normally we use as a barometer as to how well the housing industry is. It's how many single-family permits we get, or housing permits. And we have 21 this year, which is fairly close to what we saw last year. And that last year was an uptick from the year before, so
right.
Progress continues from that end.
Very good.
And mortgage interest rates are low, so we would expect that to continue in time. A number of things going on around the city. We've got a few new businesses coming into town. In the old Border store, there's going to be a new clothing store, fashion clothing store, I believe. It's called Forever 21. And then we have a couple new restaurants, which the City Council established public hearings for as they requested liquor license. One is, they're both in the shops. And one is called it's a pizza place. It's called Punch Pizza. I believe it goes actually by Punch Napoleon Pizza.
Okay.
And then another a shop called Vom Foss, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and that would also be in the shops.
Okay.
And council will be considering their liquor license request at the next council meeting.
Very good.
Just a few other things going on. The council heard reports from Al and myself regarding progress on various projects, but then they also will be honoring or recognizing police officer Mathwig for his efforts not long ago in assisting with helping a motorist that was caught in a vehicle during a vehicle fire and saved that person's life.
Right.
And he will be recognized as well as other emergency response officials that were part of that.
Congratulations.
And then also recognizing a sad event. It's the 11th anniversary of a pedestrian accident that occurred at the community center 11 years ago, where Rebecca Nelson lost her life as a result of that accident, and we have yet to find the reason why or who was involved with that accident. And police department continues their investigation on that case all these years later. And hopefully someday they will solve that.
Definitely.
A few other things that to report on. The city has an alcohol compliance program, and to assist our operators of the various restaurants and liquor establishments is that we do alcohol compliance training. And we had like 171 workers that came to that training.
Fantastic.
So that's always good news. That the more training there is out there, the less problems we find in compliance.
And this is staff from the city that's involved in this training? Is it mostly the police department, or are there other departments that get involved in that?
Basically the police department that does the training. The couple items on transportation, we'll get to that a little bit later. And then also we're pleased that Kate McGuire, superintendent at the schools, is going to be honored and recognized for her award as Superintendent of the Year. And there will be a reception for her that will occur at the Minneapolis Marriott Northwest in Brooklyn Park on Thursday, March 6th, and that's going to occur between 4 and 6.
Wonderful. Congratulations to Kate for all the hard work she does in the school district. So that's a
Absolutely.
little update of what's new around town. Any other items from the council meeting? I know it was about 12 minutes long.
Correct. And it was a fairly short meeting, and there was a couple public hearings. Basically, one that involved a development out by Rush Creek Golf Course, just a 6-lot subdivision, and then a public hearing to consider the vacation of a drainage and utility easement that makes way for the next phase of the High Grove development.
Okay.
And that was basically it. The council heard various reports from staff on what's going on around the city. And that, of course, is always on video
All right.
for any viewers that wish to catch up with that.
And we're going to get some of the highlights right now of Ken's report to the council in the last meeting. And one of the items that I know we want to talk about is 494. And we've talked in the past when you've been in, and certainly talked to Al about that, and the stretch through Plymouth and Maple Grove where it goes down to 2 lanes, and has been a little bit of an issue for a few years for Maple Grove and Plymouth. And there was some discussion about a temporary lane. Now maybe another twist to that. Give us a little history on that and where we are today with that talk.
From a historical standpoint, the city has been involved with that project for at least 10 years. And it goes back to adding additional capacity on 494, and that would be from 394 north, and at that time involved reconstruction of the Fish Lake interchange to do safety improvements there and extend it out to the west towards past Weaver Lake Road. In recognition that there is not enough funding available to do a project of that scope, the project was scaled back a number of years ago to just providing the 3rd general purpose lane on 494. That was pretty much set to go, and then through various planning efforts within the region, and this involves Met Council and MnDOT, recognizing that the overall transportation system was not funded to what you'd like it to be funded at. In fact, if it's been determined that we're about $20 billion short over the course of the next 20 years, that projects have been scaled back. And in the effort to scale back projects, it was determined that where can we get the best bang for the buck?
Sure.
And that sometimes involves managed lanes. So the project was scaled back to provide a managed lane, which would basically involve taking the shoulder of the road and opening it up during congested periods of time. Now, our city council, our mayor and council has taken opposition to that approach, just simply based on the fundamental principle that the metropolitan area has, for the most part, at least a minimum of 3 general purpose lanes around the metropolitan area. At least that 494, 694 ring.
Right.
There's 2 areas that do not have the 3rd lane. The area from 394 up into Maple Grove, and then a small stretch over in the northeast side of the metro.
Okay.
That area is going to get its 3rd general purpose lane that was funded out of the corridors of commerce. In evaluating that project, MnDOT stepped back and said, well, I think we need to really rethink this. In addition to getting a lot of heat from our own city council, Plymouth City Council and Minnetonka has taken exception to that plan as well. So we've got some work to do. The driving force is that the existing pavements are deteriorating and need some work.
Okay.
So it's not like we can sit back and take our time about this. We really need forward to complete the pavement restoration. And when I say we, I'm meaning collaboratively with MnDOT.
Sure.
And we appreciate their work on this and their willingness to step back and take another look at what's the right thing to do out there.
So this pavement update, if you will, was that something that is on the books or was scheduled with this temporary lane?
Correct.
So they were going to happen at the same time, but now they're rethinking that if we're going to do the pavement, maybe we
Correct.
do a little bit more work.
Just in order to do the pavement rehabilitation and then add this additional lane, our motorists can count on a lot of pain.
Sure, understand. We
Uh,
saw that
just-
in the past
just-
year on 169.
Yes, just from inconvenience and interruption to normal travel flow. So the approach is, well, if we're going to go through this pain, let's do it right. Now, that increases the project cost by about $25 million. But it would probably be a long-term permanent fix as opposed to an interim fix that
Sure.
may last 15, 20 years.
So the big question then is the funding, no doubt, and that's the work, some of the work that needs to be done. What are the options there? What's being talked about for that funding possibility?
Well, it's on the search to find that other 25 million, and in any particular program year, MnDOT is constantly looking at differing projects, projects that may slip a year, or projects that need to be moved up.
Sure.
Our legislature is also considering increasing the funding sources for transportation. The governor appointed a task force about 2 years ago. They went through about a year of study, and essentially the resolution of that study was we need more revenue, and that can be in the form of either general fund taxes that go into that program. Right now, transportation funding is dedicated from gas pumps and license tabs. So if you want to increase it, you can either increase any one of those existing revenue sources, or, like I say, general fund bonding to assist with some of these projects. Now, whether that will occur through this legislative session, the pessimists would say that that's really not going to happen this year,
Okay.
but you have to start talking about it sometime. So that's one source, and
Okay.
hopefully we'll get there.
All right, we will keep you up to date on the talk about 494. Let's talk a little bit about the weather and your fine departments that have to deal with this weather.
Weather.
Yes. What has this winter been like for you and for the city departments to have to deal with it?
It's been a very difficult year just to do snow and ice control. It started out with the very first storm as being a difficult one to handle, and that was back late October, early December. I can't remember the exact date, but it started out as sleet and rain, turned into an ice coat, and that not totally unusual, because usually that happens on a pavement that's not totally frozen yet, so
Sure.
you get some of that, but not to the extent we had this year, and then threw a bunch of snow on top. And we had a hard time clearing that pavement off,
Right.
because what followed right behind it was sub-zero weather that went on, it seems, forever.
Right. Yes.
So salt doesn't work that well. So it's taken a lot of effort, and after that initial snowstorm, and we got that under control, then we went through a series of the 1 and 2 inch snowfalls that seem to happen every day or every other day.
Right.
So we've been at it hard for a good 3 months now, and we have plowed the entire city. Just to back up, we normally do ice and snow control on our primary and secondary routes when the storm first starts and throughout the storm, because that's for safety
Okay.
measures.
Sure.
Plowing our residential streets usually occurs at the completion of a storm or shortly thereafter, or even if we can, we start before. To that extent, we've plowed the entire city 18 times so far this year.
Oh my.
Our normal winter is 8 times, and we've got another month or so to go.
Oh boy.
The other change that we've seen this year from other years, and we haven't had that much snow beyond what our normal is, but as I mentioned, it comes in bits and pieces and bits and pieces. We don't get the one big storm,
Right.
clear it, and then we're done. We're at it every day. But we haven't seen this year is that periodic melt
Right.
to reduce that snowpack. So we're running out of room to put snow.
Sure.
And it's gotten to the point that now even moving snow is much slower and much more effort, because in many of our trailways and that type of thing, now we have to resort to blowing it as opposed to plowing it. And that takes so much more time.
Okay.
We have to blow it up over the banks.
Sure.
And so it's been a struggle.
You're just having a great time, aren't you, with
Yes.
the snow this year? How about from a cost standpoint and a salt standpoint? I know those are two of the things that you start to think about at this time of the year is what's it costing us and what's the supply left to get us the rest of the way?
Well, of course, it has an impact on the budget. I mean, we have to budget around our anticipated efforts on an annual basis. But the fact of the matter is, the effort has to be expended. It's not just staff time that goes into it, but it's the wear and tear on equipment. And we have very expensive equipment. And in a winter like this, if you just relate the numbers I threw out, where we've had to plow 18 times as opposed to 8,
Double the amount of times.
we've probably run our equipment through 2 or more years of wear and tear. And that wears out. Of course, our staff costs are up there, our salt costs are up there. Now, many cities are getting very close to being in trouble with running out of salt. We have the ability to store a fair amount of salt. I'm not saying that we're not going to run into trouble. When we write a contract for salt, we commit to so much, but then you can't get any more than that.
Right.
Because the vendors of salt, they ship salt up from the Louisiana area by barge. Much more cost effective than, say, trucking it up there. So if you as a city or you as a county say, I want 100 ton this year, that's what you're going to get. And if you need more than that, now it's going to be much more expensive.
Okay.
One other thing about snow, and I want to make a pitch about fire hydrants.
Sure.
We have about 4,500 fire hydrants in town. We are very impressed with the activities and the efforts of our residents to help keep them clear.
Great.
I want to thank them for that work. But if there are hydrants that aren't clear, I do wish to ask that if they could help us out, if they're out blowing snow in their driveway, if they could just keep the hydrant clear if there happens to be one in their yard, or if a neighbor that can't do that type of work, help them out and keep the hydrants clear.
Exactly.
It sure helps with fire response time, and you never know when the fire strikes.
Let's move ahead a little bit now. We've talked about what has happened. Let's talk about what will happen. It will eventually melt, we think.
It will.
What is that going to mean then when all of this that's piled up and hasn't melted starts to melt to the roads, to the city in general?
Well, we started already with as much snow as there is, and then when we get a melt like we had yesterday and today, a lot of catch basins are blocked. So we're busy trying to keep getting the water into the catch basins.
Right.
And I was going to say that flooding of an intersection. The next thing you'll probably be hearing on the newscast will be flooding when all the snow melts
Sure.
to the west of us and it's coming down the Crow Rivers and the Minnesota Rivers,
Right.
that type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how the spring transpires with any flooding problems. Now in Maple Grove, we have a very good storm drainage system. I would not expect any flooding in the city.
But a good tip for residents, if they do have those drains out by their driveway or in the street, just make sure those are clear.
If they are able to, I don't promote them working out in the street where it could be
Right.
a safety
Right.
problem. Our staff is trained. They wear the appropriate safety vests. They they know how to work in and around traffic where the typical resident may not. I don't want to get any of our
Right.
residents conflicted with cars.
Sounds good. How about the roads after this winter? Seems like each spring we talk about, well, that was a horrible winter for the roads, or that was a good winter for the roads. What's your prediction of what this is going to do to the roads around town?
We've been seeing an extended problem with some of our roads. And residents and viewers may have seen some of the coverage of some of the pavement problems throughout the metropolitan area, and specifically with those pavements that were constructed between mid-90s and approaching the year 2000. Maple Grove
Okay.
grew quite a bit during that
Sure.
same period. And we hadn't seen a real big problem until this spring. We're seeing that now on a number of our roads, and we're struggling right now because you can't get hot mix asphalt to fix these roads in the middle of the winter. Now we're going to have to make some interim efforts to at least make the roads with a halfway decent driving surface, and many of those roads will go at them first thing in the spring.
Right.
And make a permanent fix to them. And those roads, if you do the math, like I said, mid-90s to 2000, they're approaching 20 years old now at this particular point. And I liken it that if you had tires on your car and they're guaranteed to go 60,000 miles and you're at 50,000 and they start to give you a problem, whether it's cupping or whatever, you replace the car, or replace those tires.
Sure.
And it's just the cost of doing business. And our council has always been very supportive of providing good thoroughfares throughout the city, and we expect to do that this year as well.
And again, how much cooperation is there between the city and the county and the state as far as identifying bad spots on the different roads throughout Maple Grove? Because I know that's sometimes a point of confusion for residents. No matter which city you're in, is this a city road, is this a county road? So that communication happens on a regular basis of your road needs help or my road needs help?
Well, we're always communicating, but there are jurisdictional obligations depending on whose road it is.
Right.
The city doesn't get out onto the freeway systems to do those roads, nor does the city do pothole patching on the county roads. They have their own staff to do that, and we work collaboratively to get that done.
And I know the city in the past has had a hotline or something through the website that people can identify if they come across some intersection that
Yes.
swallows their car.
Yes, or our website. We
Okay.
have a service request element of our website. They just go on there and report it.
All right.
Now we know they're out there, so you
Right.
can report them. But we know where the bad areas are, and we would expect the hot mix plants to be open around the 1st of March, middle of March, somewhere in there.
Okay,
In the
so
meantime, we're going to be putting down cold mix that will get us through about a month.
And then the cars dig it out of there and you have,
Yeah.
okay. So
And
it's
we're
just-
going into that bad time of year where you get that thawing during the day, freezing at night, and that just perpetuates the problem.
Right.
And we'll see that in the water mains coming up this spring, too.
Right, yeah, there could be a little interesting time there as well. All right, in the last couple of minutes here, let's talk a little bit about 610. In the past, we've talked quite a bit about it, and we certainly want to keep
Yes.
people up to date on that progress. What's new with 610 in Maple Grove?
There has been an extensive amount of work occurring both at the city level and at MnDOT level to get the requests for proposals prepared so that we can send them out to respective design build teams. This project will be a design build project whereby the parameters of the proposal are established, and then proposers being a combination of an engineering firm, a soils firm, and a contractor will then submit proposals on how they will build the project, how they will use technical expertise to minimize the cost of the project, and then finally their cost proposal. And We hope to have that selected by about the middle of summer. Takes a while then to develop all the contracts
Sure.
and the contract requirements. Whether there is work being done this coming fall yet or not, I'm not certain. There may be an opportunity to start work on some of the bridges. It's a fairly large project, about $100 million worth of construction, and one of the larger public works projects we've undertaken.
And will this be something, when it does start to go, that will definitely be in clear-cut phases, that the public will be able to see, okay, we're working on this section and this section? Or is it something where, again, with all these proposals coming in, you might attack different areas at the same time?
Well, we have work going on both sides of 94. So there's clearly going to be some advantages to leaving the existing 101st Avenue Bridge in place to get access both sides. There is a number of elements of the project that has to be done first to perpetuate access to properties that now rely on 101st Avenue.
Sure.
Because that corridor will go away.
Okay.
And then there's some key transportation elements that we need to stage so that they're not all shut down at the same time.
Right.
Specifically, Fernbrook Lane, that serves the high school area and traffic that comes down from Dayton, and Maple Grove Parkway that serves the Grove development.
Sure.
So one can happen at a time, but not both.
Right, okay, so some of the phasing is dictated by the traffic and, again, access to people's properties.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what we're putting together right now.
Okay, so the next time it comes before the council, is there another step in the process the council needs to take, or really it's in the hand of MnDOT and your department and those type of agencies at this point?
Actually, within about 30 days, I hope to have some actions before our own city council, because they will need to take action on, most specifically, to approve the final layout of the project and give municipal consent.
Okay.
Nothing will happen until we're done with that. Other key elements would be to approve the cooperative construction agreement. We have a bunch of utilities that we need to include with the project, so we're minimizing costs either today or eliminating the need to tear up in the future what we've built today. And there's a number of other agreements that will need to come before the council. And we've got about 30 days to pull that all together, and it's going to be a foot race to the end.
You're going to be a busy man and a busy department. Well,
Yep.
thank you for the update on that. We'll
You're
certainly
welcome.
keep our eye on that, and we'll be talking more about it with Al and possibly Ken in future programs. Let's leave you with the next council meeting date and some ways you can contact the city if you have any questions or more information is needed. The next council meeting will be Monday, March 3rd, 7:30 at the Government Center, 494-6000, the number to call with questions. And as Ken mentioned, the city's website, wealth of information there. There's opportunities if you do see some of those potholes out there that you might be able to pass that information along. Again, keeping in mind this time of the year, Ken, right?
Yes.
And that it's difficult to fill some of those at this time. Questions or comments about the program, our viewer response line 533-1710. Certainly give us a call. We'll try to answer your question on the program. For Ken Ashfield, I'm Dave Kaiser. Thanks for joining us on the Maple Grove City Report.